morning. I'm joined today by Jeff Hess. Jeff is a member on our board. He's our second secretary on our board. So Jeff, I want to start off by, just asking you to tell us a little bit about your involvement with Realtist of Fresno County.
So when I became a realtor, I really wanted to focus on ways that I could explore markets that had been underserved or had been left behind by the typical part of the industry.
Right.
Real estate's super competitive, and as someone with basically no sphere of influence here in town, I moved here 5 years ago, so I don't have family or extended family around to draw on.
Right.
You could either compete in the already competitive market, or you could look where there are new opportunities to explore, where there are more buyers that aren't currently being sold to, so that you're standing out in among a smaller field.
Correct. Okay. Yeah, I like that. So that's sort of what got you involved. And tell me a little bit about, sort of your experience so far with the organization, things that you've, not only expected, but things that you've learned along the way, whether it's some of the events we've hosted or just, opportunities that we need to tap into as an organization to grow.
Right. I've learned a lot since we started our organization just about a year ago. I think a lot of people are aware of the impacts of racism and the history of historical discrimination on the housing industry.
Right.
But the more you pick away at it and the ways you find out what a big role that had,
Absolutely.
From where chemical plants go to where our highways and freeways are to how our city council and congressional districts get drawn, you really start to see how housing led the way into a situation where people feel trapped, both literally and figuratively, into an arrangement that they cannot get themselves out of without
Right.
the ability to build wealth that other people can.
Right.
So I thought I had a handle on that, and I feel like I've just barely begun the process of really fully understanding the scope of that.
Right.
So the flip side of that is I think that's why we are so essential to help more people understand the challenges that we're facing.
Absolutely.
And that's why when someone came to me with the opportunity to be on the ground floor, I really wanted to jump at that and be involved, because, it's easy to look back at change makers when they've accomplished things that seem very difficult and say, oh, wow, it's so great that they did all that work, but, someone has to go first. And sitting around and waiting for other people to take initiative, and really what I see as a realtor, our industry owes back quite a bit for the role we played in setting up the system that has failed so many people, that I didn't see a scenario where I could sit on the sidelines and wait for someone else to do the job that I feel like needs to be done.
Right. And I think that's leadership. And I think that's what that really is a testament to, is as a leader, you see something that needs attention. You see, obviously, something that needs to be, and in terms of your involvement, I think you put it greatly, is that you can't just be on the outside watching. You can't be on the outside and getting involved, getting your hands dirty in terms of tackling the issues that we are facing with, Black home ownership is very, very important, to the point where you can, like I said, you can't sit out. So,
and just real quick, like realtors, like your personality type, we are all type A drivers, strivers, and achievers.
Generally.
And we all, every single one of us thinks the best person for any job is ourselves.
Yeah.
So I don't think my pride would have let me see a problem and then just been able to walk by it.
And I admire that. I really do. Now, previously, you had been in the radio media industry. And tell me a little bit about, your experience there and what you've taken from that to translate to the real estate market and to your profession now.
Yeah, I think one of the strongest assets that my experience there gave me was the ability to communicate complex subjects in a relatively simple way. For most people, coming into real estate is brand new. The average person only buys a house a few times in their lifetime, and it seems complicated and intimidating.
Right.
So for me, the ability to express confidence and make people believe that I have the ability to guide them through this process as an assistant and as someone who's by their side to help them accomplish their goals, that's really, I think, what media has given me. And
Okay.
especially in light of the virus shutdown
Yeah.
and looking forward to what our industry is going to look like when things return to whatever
Correct.
normal is, it's really going to put the accelerator down on a trend that was already in progress, which was more of our industry moving online and the face-to-face meetings becoming less frequent. You're still going to need to go see houses. There's no
Right.
replacement for getting in them.
Right.
But if, as a realtor, if you aren't at least thinking about what the world of online meetings and client meetings online is going to look like, the post-COVID environment, then you might be not preparing for the time when
Right,
business opens back up.
Right, right. No, I completely agree. And I think this, everything that's been going on, I think is sort of kind of a rude awakening for all of us, professionally, right? To kind of learn how to adapt. And we all have had to in these times. One of the things I want to ask you is, in terms of you being the real estate professional, what sort of challenges have you faced, when you first started? I know obviously being relatively new to the industry, I'm sure there were some challenges, some obstacles you had to face. Tell us a little bit about some of that.
Oh yeah, I mean, a big challenge, and I hope I'm not speaking too out of school here, but getting your real estate license doesn't prepare you for the work in the real world.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
It's definitely a doing industry. So the big challenge for me was, not just expressing the confidence, but having an understanding of my own confidence, learning better ways to communicate with people that show them that not only are you interested in the transaction, but that you're interested in them as people. So I've really had to think about how I make myself more open to a person-to-person connection, which in news, there's always a little bit of like distance you want to keep from somebody. And part of the reason I left that industry is because I wanted more authentic and And so that was a really big challenge that is going to probably be the ongoing course of, I think, my and our career, which is if things are going to change around you and the human connection is still the most essential part of the industry, how do you still manufacture and make those things happen? Because you want your people to trust you.
Right.
And I think that, this is my big obsession is like access to resources. When you look at a map of our city, all the real estate resources are hyper concentrated in one area, and there's not a good distribution.
No, it's not.
So if we're going to move to a world where it's going to be primarily online and things like that, I have real concerns about equitable access to those resources, because poor communities have less internet access. They have less access to computers. They have less access to Wi-Fi. They have less access to public institutions that have available internet and things like that. So even as we move to a system that will make that more spread, which I would like, I think there are pitfalls that we need to be thinking about.
Right.
And not just say, well, the internet is here now, it's the panacea. Everyone's, oh, we don't have to worry about it anymore. I think it's just going to open up new avenues for concern.
No, that's a very good point. Typically when a new agent starts, it's generally advised that you have a mentor, that you have someone that you can sort of, revert to for guidance. Do you have somebody that that has sort of has been involved in your pathway so far, or
Oh yeah, and that was definitely advice that I listened to big time. Yeah, I'm at Movoto Real Estate because Gary Carter is my mentor, and he was my teacher at the classes that I went through, because I'm old school and I wanted a traditional like sit down class setting. And I heard that advice too, and it's like I did not want to go somewhere where I wouldn't have a personalized hand helping me through, because I'm a high maintenance person, and just being a face in the crowd wasn't gonna do it, because there are so many questions as a new realtor you need answered. Absolutely. Right down to, should I be checking a box on this 10-page form that I'm still getting familiar with, all the way up to, we've been talking now. I've never worked in a recession environment, so my whole time in real estate has been during a growth environment. Right. And I've talked to my mentor quite a lot about, what does working as a realtor in a recession look like? How do you make money? What things should I be doing when it's not a growth time, but it's a recession time? So not only is it, how do I do the transaction part of things, but it's also help me understand my clients better, and to help me understand myself better.
The market too. Okay, no, that's great. Well, let me ask you, I'm going to put you on the spot here. What would be one thing that you could, think of that Gary Carter has sort of taught you or advised you that you will keep and cherish for your entire career so far at this point?
Yeah, one of the big things that he's really taught me is how to focus on keeping clients in your personal network. Okay. So every transaction can have challenges in it, but there are challenges even before you get to that point.
Right.
So you can't think about attending to your client's need just when you put them into contract. It's how do you understand what their problems are and where the sticking points are way earlier.
Right.
And so he's always very attuned to what someone's really asking you about. When people ask questions, they're often asking like a sub question underneath the question.
Right. There's always an inner plot. You're absolutely okay.
And so he's got 20 years of experience of figuring this out, and I can run a scenario by him, and he will very quickly be able to go, oh, well, it's probably this or that is going on. And it had never occurred to me that there are all these other circumstances. And so if you can answer the sub question, it really helps bring things up, and it makes people feel really special because you're listening and paying attention to what they're saying.
No, that is a very good advice, and that's a great lesson, as a matter of fact. So now that you've had some experience, right, as a real estate agent, what was there something or anything for that matter that you did when you first started that you would do differently now?
I wouldn't call just everyone in my phone book. That's some advice that early realtors get. I think that might be unique to me because I've moved so much and I haven't lived here for very long. Maybe for someone who's a lifelong Fresno or Visalia or something like that, maybe that's more useful for them. I definitely would have a better understanding of what the time real estate works, which is like 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. My first 6 months, I was up at work at 8 and making calls and stuff, and nobody answers. It's you're much better off attending to, like, I make lunches for my kid, I exercise and do all that stuff in the morning. So I would move my schedule a little bit more forward. Okay. I would also run my open houses differently now than I did when I just started.
When you started, how so?
You really do need to take the time to knock 100 doors around the open house, and that's not necessarily to bring the neighbors in, but neighbors will know 5 to 10 other people who they might want to move into their neighborhood.
Absolutely.
So I can see a difference when I do that work versus when I don't do that work.
Okay.
And also being more prepared with reasonable comparison homes. So when someone is a lot of times people are wondering, is this house valued right? And so if you have off the top of your heads a couple of examples, it not only demonstrates that, yes, the house is in the right price range, but also that you really know your stuff.
Right.
And it doesn't take very much knowledge dropping to convince someone that you have at least the base level of interest.
Correct.
And also getting better at letting people know that that's not the only house I'm trying to sell.
That's a very good point. No, that's great. I think that is really good information, Jeff. And to that point, you're talking about, knocking on doors, prior to open houses. One thing I really admired, because I followed you, quite a bit since you started, is, you had a phrase, and, I might have this incorrectly, but you called it Operation Takeover Fresno High Neighborhood. I believe that's the phrase you used.
Yeah, well, it was dominate the block.
There you go, dominate.
The block got dominated by coronavirus. So.
Yeah, I know, unfortunately. But no, I think I really like that because, oftentimes when new agents start, or even seasoned agents, is you tell yourself you're going to dominate a block, but you never end up actually accomplishing that. And so one thing I really admired is I felt that you took a task to that, and you really took the effort and really made the point to dominate that block. Tell us why you thought about doing that, and then how that evolved. Yeah,
so as a new agent, one of the biggest struggles you're going to have is access to the financial resources that more accomplished agents have. Mm-hmm. So you really need to be thinking about how to maximize your outreach for the fewest number of dollars possible.
Right.
So when you just get started, what you have is a lot of time and very little money. You need to think about, what can I do that's going to use that time in profitable ways.
Correct.
I still really think that even with all the move to online and everything like that, real estate's going to be a personal relations business. And the only way you can establish that is belly to belly. And that means going to knock on doors. That means I had plans to attend all of the flea markets and other things like that that are in our community and do things like that. So given that I can only walk so far in a day, you got to zoom in on just a space and pick it and hope that you've done your research that it's going to work out for you.
Right.
Because even in the dozen blocks that I'm doing, there's something in the neighborhood of like 5,000 houses.
Wow.
So I think people are too quick to dismiss how many houses can be even in like a small community.
Right.
You know, and it doesn't take, let's say if the turnover rate's 5% every year on 5,000 houses, that's, what is that?
That's
150?
No, it's about 250. You said 5,000?
Yeah, what's 5% of 5,000?
50. Yeah.
Yeah.
50, yeah.
So, I mean, would I want 250 deals in a year?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, even though the beauty of your online presence is that it's permanent. Once you put it on your Instagram or social media or wherever, it can be attained at any time.
Yeah.
You need to supplement that with putting yourself in front of people.
Right.
And so that's really what I want to do. I just moved, but I still live in this Fresno High community. I live at Fruit and Shields.
Okay.
And I'm a huge believer in like the community here.
Right.
So if I feel that, much like with my drive to join ROFC, if I feel it, like act on that, because one of the biggest challenges in this is there's nobody behind you pushing you along.
Absolutely.
There's no 9 to 5. There's no boss. There's no nobody. So you need an internal fire.
Right. No, that is great. That is really good, Jeff. Something. So based on sort of what you've experienced so far at this point, what advice would you offer? For someone who's just starting out, a brand new agent. You've learned a lot, right? And so, what kind of advice would you give someone that is just starting out and entering the business?
Look for where no one else is and go there.
I like that. That's pretty simple enough.
The California real estate market in Fresno is still really accessible for most people, especially working class people. So there is a lot of interest in people who are working blue collar jobs or non-college educated jobs who have an interest in buying a home.
Right.
If realtors will go to them.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of research to back this up that, one of the biggest complaints is about realtors not returning calls, bad business hours, unavailability. We had, you and I went to a church a few months ago, and it was I got more leads off of that than I did off of my last 5 open houses, because a lot of it was answering questions, but no one had gone and asked for their business. You have to go and ask. These places aren't just dry of opportunity, but you have to ask for someone's business.
It's all about providing, starting a conversation and opening up and being accessible, right, to those that really need it. Because, you make a good point. That was such a really good event that we attended when we attended that church. And just the amount of people that came pouring out just to get information simply because of something that we talked about.
And we had plans to do it every 3 months.
Right. Exactly. And
here we are.
Coronavirus just put a stop to that as of right now. But nonetheless, I completely agree with you. Is being able to reach out to those people that they want the information, right? And it's just getting that to them.
And it might feel just like you're providing someone information, but 2 things to keep in mind is that there is an information gap in those communities that's going to need to be filled first. And if you're providing valuable knowledge, you're still giving that person something of value that they might want to repay you for, or refer someone who's going to repay you for it. So I think it's very tempting to look at scenarios where it doesn't immediately turn into a deal and feel like it was a waste of time.
And they generally don't always, immediately turn into a deal, but eventually, the person you talked to 2 months ago, all of a sudden they're ready or they have someone that they want to refer to. So,
Yeah.
building those relationships and starting those conversations. So, vital, right? Now, obviously COVID-19 is the top of everybody's mind right now. What challenges have you faced professionally within the last month and a half or whatever it is since the pandemic started?
So my situation's a little unique compared to some agents. I have an infant at home, so it's really not a responsible or reasonable expectation that I could continue showing or meeting people.
Right.
So it's very difficult to take on new clients or people who are active in the search.
Right.
So for me, we've shut down that part of my business entirely.
I got you.
If I first couple of weeks, I really put myself through a lot of stress trying to maintain what I feel is an adequate service.
Okay.
And being unable to. So it left me in feeling both frustrated and inadequate. And so
you're not alone in that. You're not alone in that at all.
Yeah. And so I think, and I don't know how many other people are talking about this, but like the depression isolation is just crushing.
Oh, absolutely.
It's really difficult to wake up in the morning and see the day stretch out in front of you with nothing. Oops, Is that me?
Right.
Oh, hold on. Can we pause for a second? This is Don.
Yeah. So yeah, let me rephrase my question a little bit, Jeff. So I wanted to know, obviously with everything going on with COVID-19, what sort of challenges have you faced professionally over the last month or month and a half because of this?
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest challenge was figuring out whether or not I could work at all. Right. So I have an infant son at home. He's going to turn a year in a couple of weeks. And it didn't seem like it could be a responsible decision for me to even do the limited out in the field work that needs to be done to make real estate deals happen, like meeting people for the first time, going and seeing houses, even vacant houses.
Yeah.
So that was the big challenge, which is what does real estate look like in a world where you can't see houses?
Right.
I have made the decision to essentially just shut down. Given the family situation at home, there's no transaction to me worth potentially bringing the virus back into my family or spreading it to other people in my community.
Right. Okay. No.
So the secondary effect of that it's been like the depression and lack of motivation and.
Right. And I'm glad you mentioned that because that's something that people are not talking about in that.
Yeah. Because I follow some realtor groups on Facebook and a lot of it is these are type A driven people who are not going to admit struggle or challenge. But when you read the comments, there's a lot of people in our industry struggling with the emotional weight of losing what for a lot of folks is like a personal identity.
Right,
it is who you are, and to have an outside force come in and take that away for some uncertain amount of time.
Yeah.
For people who make their industry, you have to make your own money, and the opportunity to do that is gone. I think that the mental health impacts of that really need to be respected because I think it's significant.
No, that's a very, very good point, and I'm glad you brought that up. And so essentially you kind of alluded to, obviously the changes that you've had to make, obviously kind of shutting things down a little bit for the sake of your family and really for the sake of others, which I think that is a real, decision that a lot of people have had to make or are still making, right, in light of everything going on. Now, what would you say, if any, and this is kind of it's sort of a weird question, but I want to ask anyway, what would you say is the biggest misconception right now with everything going on, as it relates to COVID-19 and real estate, specifically, anything?
Well, I think the biggest misconception is that deals are not happening. Real estate has been deemed essential by the state government. I think that's the right decision because people still have babies. They're still getting married and divorced. They're still obviously gaining jobs, losing jobs. People need a place to live. Food, shelter, and water, 3 essentials to life, and we provide one of those. So I think the biggest misconception is that if you were thinking about buying a home now, that you absolutely must stop everything.
Right.
Most realtors that I've spoken to are talking about 60 and 90-day escrows. They're talking about COVID addendums that add some additional escape clauses to the contract so that in a couple of weeks or a month when you can start to go out to see these places more. So if you were thinking, should I stop this financial decision because of the virus, I don't think there's a good argument to do that. And I'm a living example of it. I closed escrow on my first home.
Congratulations.
Thank you. 5 days into quarantine, we closed, and then we used the quarantine to move. But the reality is you're going to need a place to live one way or the other.
Right.
And the virus is not going to last forever. And so when you get back to the dollars and cents of it, it still makes a lot of sense to be a landowner through purchase of real estate. Right. And so I wouldn't think that the virus killed that dream entirely.
Correct. Okay. No, that's great. And one of the last questions I have for you is, so, personally, you talked about how you professionally had to make some changes due to COVID-19. How about personally? What have you done? What sort of precautions have you taken personally within your home? Obviously you have a young one, so what are you doing at home?
Well, the big personal change is I don't leave my house unless it's absolutely necessary. I do all the cooking and grocery shopping for our family, so I have been doing that once a week. I'm now doing that once a month, so I'm having to figure out how to restructure how to make meals for a month.
Right.
And then when I do go out, it's gloves and it's a face mask, and it's as soon as you get back home, the clothes go in the wash and you get in the shower. And so, golly, we wash our groceries. That's one thing I never thought I would do.
Really?
So yeah. So
when you get your groceries, you wash, like you're talking about, like even like packages or what?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So I spent, for a month of food, it cost me just shy of, for the three of us, it just cost me about $500, which is like 10 grocery bags.
Okay.
And the wife would put a bucket of soapy water, a bucket of clean water, and then towels, and we wash everything. We wash the vegetables, we wash the fruits, and then we wash all the stuff, particularly the stuff that comes in packages. Because the food inside the package is fine. But you don't know who handled the package. You don't know who sneezed or coughed on the package. You don't know anything about it. So that package itself could be a carrier for virus.
Right. That is very impressive. Now, as far as your grocery, are you doing any sort of like Instacart or like, home delivery orders? Or what all are you?
So,
avoid going out is kind of my question.
Yeah, we tried Instacart once. The lag time was 6 days between when we ordered it and when we got our stuff.
Right.
And the more I've thought about it, the bigger ethical objection I have to dispatching someone who's more in need of money into this environment than going out myself.
Okay.
If it's of such import, then I shouldn't just be able to pay a poor person to take the risk for me.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
And I saw a quote a week or two ago from somebody who's like, essential might as well mean expendable. And so it's really put me in mind of thinking about the kinds of jobs that are out there, who we're asking to do them, the risk we're asking them to take, and then how much we're paying them for that service.
I see what you're saying.
And so I guess that's probably not a great answer. But I struggle very much to pay people to do something of risk that I am choosing not to do. Okay. So I have no problem paying a plumber because I don't know plumbing. I am capable of shopping for my own groceries, and I don't want to outsource the risk because I can afford it.
Okay. No, I like that. And the reason why I ask, because everyone has a different point of view on online groceries or whatever the case might be. So no, I want to thank you so much for your time, Jeff. This has been a great interview, and I really enjoy the conversation. And obviously, I can't wait till we all get together once this is all over and done with.
I'm so glad you reached out. You and I have got a great partnership going. I think it's really important that we keep open line of information to our clients, because this is going to subside at some point, and things are going to pick back up. And if you have a smart realtor by your side and you're planning well, when things come back, there's a real opportunity for folks who have kept their wits about them and put themselves in a position to make a smart financial move which is so important in real estate. Our lead time on clients is usually 6 to 18 months. So we're thinking long-term for our clients too. And I hope the clients are thinking long-term for themselves.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Jeff, and enjoy the rest of your day. And we'll talk soon. Okay.
Thank you, Lionel.
I appreciate you.